And this is a good sign, you know, that we sort of read the tea leaves of this sort of badminton game that they're playing on the Sunday morning talk shows. I mean, there was a time where like the entire country watched the Sunday morning talk shows and everybody assumed it was like there was some type of reality to it. But I don't know. It just seems bizarre to me. But this is a good sign. And that is Jennifer Granholm. She is the energy secretary in the Biden administration. And she is basically saying, like, you know, of course, like we want this to be partisan. But let's play this clip.
The coronavirus relief package passed the House and Senate with 0 Republican votes. Ultimately, looking at this bill, I'm wondering if that would be okay with you and President Biden again to have a bill pass with 0 Republican votes.
Well, obviously, the preference is to have this done in a bipartisan way. 80% of America supports investing, over 80% investing in infrastructure. That's Democrats and Republicans and independents. So the president is very concertedly reaching out to Republicans to say, come to the table. If you don't like a component of it, tell us how you would do it. What do you want to see in this bill? But honestly, Jake, the vast majority of this bill includes things that Republicans are supporting, like roads and bridges spending, like broadband, like water, like manufacturing supply chains. These are all things that Republicans have actually introduced bills on. So come to the table. We want to make it bipartisan. You know, ultimately, if that doesn't happen, he is elected to do the job, to win the future for America, to invest in our people. And we hope that Republicans can join their constituents across the country in supporting this effort.
Ultimately, if you don't get Republican support, you're willing to pass this with using reconciliation rules, meaning only 50 Democratic votes in the Senate and Vice President Harris casting the tie-breaking vote. You're willing to do that?
Well, you know, as he has said, he was sent to the presidency to do a job for America. And if the vast majority of Americans, Democrats and Republicans across the country support spending on our country and not allowing us to lose the race globally, then he's going to do that. However, his sincere preference, his open hand is to Republicans to come to the table and say, if you don't like this, how would you pay for it? If you don't like this, what would you include? So much of this, though, includes priorities that Republicans have supported. So I hope that Democrats and Republicans can be on the final vote yes on this bill, on this package.
Talk about Kabuki theater.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, but it's also, you know, like, and you know, I don't know why Jake Tapper can't say, hey, so you passed the first coronavirus bill, the first reconciliation bill was $1.9 trillion. And it was wildly popular, probably popular than legislation that's been passed that we can recall for maybe, I don't know, a decade, 2 decades, maybe more. And you did it with absolutely no Republican support. Why wouldn't you do that again for something that 80% of the public?
Well, you know why he's not going to say that.
I do, but it's like, I just want people to understand, like, there is another way you ask that question that is actually even more of an obvious way to ask that question. You base it upon what recent history has been, which is that worked out so well for you. Why wouldn't you do it that way again?
Well,
and then Granholm could say, like, well, we have to pretend like we're going to put our arms out to
yes, so that's the point. We had this discussion when they were still going back and forth on the American Rescue Package and discussing how Biden kept saying we want to bring Republicans to the table early on, and we all knew that wasn't going to happen. But we had a question: is this Biden's actual inclination, or is he pretending as such in order to posture and make himself seem like he's the more reasonable one in the public's eye? And now I think the jury is in there. I don't think Granholm believes that the Republicans are going to come to the table on this, and the Biden administration doesn't feel that way. And so it does seem like a targeted to, I guess, older voters, in my view,
there's definitely
posture about a reasonability, and I don't think that they're gonna. Even though, I mean, the critique about them whittling this this package down unnecessarily, I think should be prominent when discussing this. But I think they know that they're moving forward without any Republican votes.
Yes, and I definitely think there is an audience for what Granholm is doing, and you could see how she got a little bit more nervous when he said, "Can you answer that directly? Will you go through reconciliation?"
Yeah,
she was out there to do sort of phase 1 of this, which is like, we're open to Republicans. Come in,
reasonable.
Tell us what you want. I mean, I don't know why she couldn't add to that, like, Republican voters also want their grandparents or their grandmother or their father or their mother to get more care at home as opposed to having to go into a home, or more support for them to go into a home if they're disabled in some fashion. What is interesting though is, when do we get to the point where the Beltway corporate media is willing to sort of like change their premise from the 1990s to where we are 30 years later, where it's like, I mean, the default should be, why wouldn't you use reconciliation again? It worked out so well for you last time. There's no, like, people coming from outer space to come in and go like, hey, whoa. We've noticed you've been using reconciliation quite a bit. We need you to pull back.
Not one Republican vote.
Come on. I mean, it's how the American public's reacting, and that's how they're reacting.
And the fact that they still haven't caught up after years and years of Trump and essentially the media being demonized by him, and they watch the Republican Party that they provided cover for years, not go along with it as well. The fact that it's still taking this shows how systemic this religious obsession with bipartisanness and the fetishization of the Washington process goes, even deeper than one that Biden held, because the media is still holding on to it.
I would agree.